Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Candid Business Conversations podcast. I'm your host Pratyush, and today we have Vatsal, who is a friend from undergrad, and I'm very pleased to mention that he's also a student at ESCP Europe. So he's been hopping multiple campuses, and today he's with us and will be sharing his experience. So, Vatsal, welcome to the show, and let's get started. Why don't you start by introducing yourself, and we can move ahead talking about your background, your experiences, and your future journey ahead. Yeah.
Sure. First of all, thank you for having me. So, as you briefly mentioned, I did my undergrad in India. So I did my undergrad in engineering, BTech from NIT Rourkela, which is somewhat of a premium institute in India. And there I developed a hobby for management. So I had a small startup. I did a few internships in marketing, but I had a feel for it. So that's why I decided to do a master's in management, but mostly in marketing. All my specializations currently are in marketing, in ESCP Business School. And inside ESCP, I've studied in the Paris campus as well as the Madrid campus. And now I'll be joining the Berlin campus for my third semester.
I see. That's quite a diverse experience indeed. So, tell us, like, you pivoted from engineering to management. What drew you to marketing? Were you always interested in marketing? And what are your goals? Because I myself did the program from ESSEC in Singapore, and I was initially interested in luxury brand management, but because I did a digital marketing program, I decided to pivot more into the digital field. So how is it going with you? I suppose you just completed your internship recently with L'Oreal in Paris. So could you talk a bit about your experiences and what drew you to marketing? What makes you interested in marketing? Yeah.
Sure. So in during my bachelor's, I had a small startup. There, I was first introduced to multiple things inside business, like what is finance, what is marketing, what is operations, and how does it work. Inside that, I was particularly interested in marketing uh, for many reasons, mostly for advertising. I really liked advertising at that point. And then when I decided to do my master's, that was my main aim as well, to learn more about marketing particularly. But overall, I think down the line, I want to build a startup of my own. So that's the eventual goal. I think in every startup, marketing is a major role that a founder slash CEO has to fulfill. That's why this is gonna help me in a lot in that. Now coming to marketing, I did two internships in Paris as I took a gap year. So after my first year, my two semesters, I took a gap year and I did two 6 month internships in Paris just to understand the European work ethic and just to get myself used to the marketing life in Europe, because marketing in India and marketing in Europe are completely opposite. And as you mentioned, my second internship was with L'Oreal. It was more towards the product side of things. So my actual title was as a product manager, but L'Oreal being a marketing focused company, it was inside the marketing domain. It was very interesting to see how a global headquarters work. I was working for the brand L'Oreal Paris inside their hair color division, and we were responsible for basically developing all the hair color for all the markets. So L'Oreal operates in 100 plus countries in almost every division there is. And that's why it was very interesting to just see how such a big brand functions. And I think that was one of the reasons why I went to Europe, just to see how a European company functions. And L'Oreal was a perfect example of that. So it was a big learning experience for me, but I think that was very fruitful 6 months.
I see, I see. I remember when I visited you in Paris, I was there for a lunch with you, and I mean, the work culture can definitely get hectic, but the huge learning curve that comes with it, that's added benefit. So, what's because you have spent considerable time on the Paris campus of EACP as well as the Madrid campus, the Spanish
Yeah.
campus that you mentioned. Could you tell us a bit about your experiences in Spain and tell our viewers what is the USP of ESCP, because they are known for their multi-campus experience. So how does this experience really benefit a student, and why should someone consider ESCP, particularly hopping campuses, because there's a requirement of doing multiple campuses? So just enlighten us a bit about the same, yeah?
Sure. So firstly, who doesn't know, ESCP has 6 campuses, and you can choose between any of those campuses, and you have to at least study in 2 campus. That's a requirement for getting the degree. So, for example, in my case, I started with Paris campus. You can choose any of the campuses. So you can start in, so the campuses are in London, Paris, Madrid, Berlin, uh, Turin, which is in Italy, and Warsaw, which is in Poland. So these are the 6 choices that you have. And that is the big USP of ESCP, that you get to experience the culture, the knowledge, the people of these countries, as well as you get to work in these countries, because whenever you are working in a foreign country, it's very hard to secure all the paperwork, right? And in these cases, the school really helps you in doing that. Like in my case, although I did both my internships in Paris, I got a significant amount of help from school in preparing the contract, in doing the due diligence with me, and helping me out in doing all the paperwork. So that's a big part that I think ESCP is really good at. So it gives you exposure to not just one geography, but multiple geographies. And secondly, you can move around the campus, and it's very easy to move around. Like in my case, when I decided I'll start in Paris, then you get a choice of where you want next specialization. And I choose Madrid because of the specialization in marketing. Madrid is known for its marketing inside ESCP. So that's why I went to Madrid. But I had friends went to London, then did Berlin, then ended in Turin, and so far and so forth. It's very flexible in that case. And when I went to Madrid, it was very new, very different. Although it's another European country, and I was studying in Paris, but still it was very different because uh, the whole culture of Spain is reflected in school as well. So the teachers you interact with, the classmates that you have, the even the language that is spoken around the school, how exams are conducted, everything is very Spanish-like, which was different from what I was used to in France for my first semester. So that gives you a bit perspective. It I had classmates whom I can talk about Spanish companies, Spanish culture, how the Spanish job market is. And if I want to go to Spain later on, I can get help from them. And I already have a bit of a network in Spain. Same case for my third semester, I'm going to Berlin. And in the same manner, I'll get used to German working culture. So if I, like, for example, in my case, I'm passionate about automobiles. If I want to build a career in automobiles, it will be very easy for me because I've studied in Germany. I'll get a degree from the ESCP German campus. So I'll have a German degree at the end of my studies, and that will help me a lot when I want to secure a job or even a job search visa for that matter. So I think that's the biggest benefit from ESCP. Apart from that, there are small ones, but hopping between campuses is something that I like about the school.
Indeed, that's a very niche and special USP that ESCP Europe offers. And as you rightly mentioned, a lot of our candidates who get into top business schools, they have this issue of getting visas later, especially for freshers who do not have significant work experience. It can be especially difficult for companies to sponsor your visa initially before you have proven to them that you know the skill through an internship. Usually in European countries, what I understand is you need to do an internship first, which
Exactly.
gets converted later. So that's the path you took. So tell us one more thing regarding your experiences on campus, because you did one semester on each campus and you are headed to the Berlin campus later on. So culturally, I mean, we spoke about how things are and how networking is very, very important. And I think the experience gives you a great perspective and insight into the local culture and how companies work. If you want to reach out to someone in the network, say a classmate or even an alumni there, it's easy to tap into, right? Like any good B school alumni
Exactly.
network provides. So how do you describe the professors and the community on each of these campuses as a whole? Because under the ESCP brand, there's a lot of campuses on different countries. So how do you say the study culture or the on-campus life is? What is your perspective on that?
Sure. So I think that's one place where ESCP excels from most of the schools because we have 6 campuses. So that means you have 6 times the number of students that you normally have in a business school. So that gives you a lot bigger network to interact with. For example, in my case, when I went to L'Oreal, my small team, which was my team, which was almost 20 people, and out of those 20, 5 of them were from my school. So that gave a lot of leverage, during my, I don't know how helpful that was during my interview, but certainly post I started working, it was very helpful to interact with them. We have common topics, we have common things. So that was super helpful for me. Apart from that, coming to the classrooms and how the student network is, it's very diverse. Again, there are people who are completely focused on studies. So mostly finance people, I will say. They are completely dedicated towards studies. They have classes since morning to evening. And then there are some specializations which are a bit light. You can take your time. There are specializations in economics, for example, or in sustainability, for example, which are a bit lighter compared to the one in finance. So there you will find people who are interested in other things, maybe clubs. There are a lot of clubs in the ESCP. In each of these campuses, there are multiple clubs. So they are interested in, you can form a new club as well. I know a few of my friends who took these specialization which were not so hard on your academics, and then they went into clubs. They excelled in clubs, got internships through those clubs, and then they came back as the director or presidents of those clubs. So I think that's the advantage of being in a student fraternity. And it changes from France to Spain. In Spain, there are people who are dedicated into different things. Like I said, Spain is more about marketing, more about tech. So in Spanish campus, you will find a lot more people who are discussing tech, who are discussing marketing. In case of London, for example, it's a lot focused on finance because London is the finance hub. So if you go there, you will find a lot of people who are discussing all the same things that you are interested in, which is the financial part of things. So they'll talk a lot more about the finance companies. You will have clubs who will take you to, for example, Citi, Goldman, or JP, or these bigger clubs. You will have people who are working in those places. So that will help you a lot in terms of student. And coming to the professors and the classes, the professors are very diverse. There are some professors who are currently working in companies. So they come just to teach a particular subject. For example, I had a subject called creativity in marketing in Madrid. So that professor was doing advertising for 35 years. So he has that experience, that amount of experience. And he really helped in understanding how the creativity part of advertising works. So in that case, there are a lot of professors who are actually working with a company. Then there are some professors who are focused on research quite a lot. So you can, if you want to go into that direction, you can go ahead and take help from them. And then there are some professors who have retired from big banks, who have retired from big corporations, and now they are transferring all the knowledge that they have gained in those places. So again, it's a diverse mix of professors as well.
Interesting. So the key takeaways that I understand from this part of the topic is that first we talked about the student clubs on campus, because even at ESSEC there's two types of clubs. Like we have student clubs which operate, which have a network with existing companies, especially in securing internships and in the future jobs. But then there's also an alumni part of the club, which has distinguished alumni and people in the industry, very senior people who meet from time to time, and that's a part which you get access to after graduating, obviously. So I think you rightly mentioned that clubs can be an integral part, but then again, depending on how heavy your course load is, it could differ from person to person. Every person can have an individualized and a very personalized path, which is also a key USP of any European school, if I am correct on this part. And the second part which we talked about was professors on campus. Definitely here in Singapore as well, we have a lot of professors who are not really academic in context. They are MDs or senior C-suite level people in companies, and also have probably their own companies at some point of time. So basically the serial entrepreneurs who come to the classroom and love teaching, it's their passion, and that gives us a lot of perspective and brings home the point that there's a lot of academic and industry coherence that I like to talk about. A lot of schools might not have this, they might be more academic focused, but a lot of these top European schools, as we say, they have a very huge academic and industry coherence. Like, it's very important to know what are the trends in the industry, so that when you graduate from college you are ready for the workforce, right? So I think Vatsal clearly and very beautifully pointed out how it works on different campuses in Europe, because he's basically been established physically in Europe for some time, and he knows the inner workings of how things work. So that's a beautiful take on it. So Vatsal, let's move on to something less academic and serious. Why don't you tell us about the food culture and your travel experience there? Like, let's talk about the social life out there. What do you do when you're not on campus? Are people friendly? What kind of adventures have you been up to? Because you were always the adventurer type, right? I have seen that in undergrad. You used to go on long trips, hitchhiking, going on weekend getaways. Like, we also did a lot of them in Singapore, but let's talk about your experiences today, in particular in Europe. Yeah, I'm interested to know.
Sure. So again, it varies hugely depending on what you like. I'll talk about my personal experience. So first of all, it's a very international classroom. So you get a lot of people who don't have friends, who don't know the place. So it's nice to go ahead with them and just discover the place. For example, when I was in Madrid, I had a lot of classmates from Argentina. I don't know anything about Argentina. It was very new for me. So it was just nice to go around with them, hop to different places. And since I'm moving campuses every few months per se, it gives me a lot of time to discover the country. For example, when I was in Spain, it gave me a lot of time to just go around the country, just go around, because you get a lot of time between your specializations. You have the weekends, you have a lot of time after your semester exams. So that time you can utilize in traveling. In my case, I did western part of the Europe, but then for the last 1 year, I'm more interested in the eastern part. So I've been to around 15 countries in Eastern Europe. I've been to smaller countries like Croatia, like North Macedonia, Bosnia, these kind of countries, because first of all, they are cheaper to travel. And secondly, they are less known countries, so you can go around them and discover them. But it's not so crowded. They don't have that much tourists, so you get a lot of free time to yourself. And again, school can help you a lot in this, because whenever you move to a new place, you don't have friends. And if you have an international classroom, it's easier to connect with those people and go around with them. I think the first thing we did in Paris when we started out is we created a group for people who are interested in hiking. And then we went around with them because it's easier to connect with hobbies. So, for example, if someone likes bar hopping, for example, there's a particular group in Madrid where you can go, and these students will go along with you, and you can just discover the bar culture of Madrid. Similar case, if you like I don't know, sailing, for example, then you can go around with these students, and then you can go to the Amalfi Coast in Italy, or the Nices of Paris, of France, and just discover that side of things. So you can develop your social life with the students. Apart from that, just talking about the social life in general, in Paris, it's a very metropolitan city, is the most visited city in the world. So of course, you get people who uh, speak English. So for example, in my case, I don't speak that good French, so it's hard to connect with locals. But again, you have so many international people that it becomes easy. And then the same case was with Madrid, because again, it's the capital city, so a lot of people speak the language. Now coming to Spain, people are very friendly. Like, you will see some of the friendliest people out there. So they'll help you with everything. The food was great. I will say the food in Spain was better than the food in France, particularly for me because I'm a vegetarian. So a French cuisine is mostly around meat. Spanish cuisine, you have a lot of potatoes, a lot of breads, a lot of things like that. So that's why I like Spanish cuisine more. But again, there's something out for everyone. You just have to go and discover that.
Definitely, definitely. That's very interesting listening to your experiences, especially lesser known countries. Because when I was in Singapore, I made it a point to explore the entirety of Southeast Asia. Countries like Cambodia, Vietnam, like exploring things which are not too touristy and trying to get to
Exactly.
know the local culture, going to restaurants, talking to people. You get a sense and feel of how things work on ground, which might be very different from, say, a textbook or a contextual perspective. So that's amazing. Let's move on to the next part, which is your admission process to EACP. Yeah? Because as students, what I'm trying to point out here is, as you mentioned, there's something for everyone, right? People often obsess that I need to get into the top schools, like the absolute top. And we, as a consulting company, we specialize in the top 100 schools. So, I mean, every school might be different. Someone might have a huge focus on finance, some school might be more focused on consulting or tech, different schemas that we can put into. But then you get in where you fit the best, right? So, could you tell us a
Exactly.
bit about how you approach the applications straight out of undergrad? Because I presume you didn't have work experience at the time when you joined, same like me. So if you could tell us a brief about how the application process works, what was your interview like, any tips and tricks that you'd like to give to future students applying to ESCP, what kind of
Sure.
campuses would be useful, anything and everything which would encompass the application process. Yeah, Vatsal?
Sure. So first of all, for me, as you rightly pointed, I didn't have a lot of work ex. I had zero work ex before starting. I just had internships, which I did in the past. That was the only part of my CV that had that I was capable of filling. And now coming to the application part, how I approach it is, first of all, I got done with my GRE. In my case, I gave GRE. So I got done with GRE a bit earlier than usual so that I have enough time to work on my story, on my SOPs, on my essays, on my LORs. Because again, depending on the college, for example, in case of ESCP, I can say that GMAT is not, I think they give more importance to essays and SOPs than GMAT from whatever I have understood. It could be different in case of different colleges. So you have to go and talk to the people who are actually studying there, who have actually passed, to know what is the hierarchy level for different things. So I knew that for EACP, GMAT and GRE in my case, or GMAT if you are into that, was not the best, the most important part. So as soon as I got done with it, I had a decent score. Then I've worked on my story. So for any business school, as you guys also help in that, you must have a coherent story. So your story should include what you have done in the past, what you have uh, worked in your work ex, if you have a work ex, what you have done during your work ex, what is your expectation from the school, why you are joining that particular school, and what you want to do in the do after graduating from the school. So the story should be in line. So that's something that I worked upon before applying to any school. Now coming to ESCP, again from what I remember, there were three essays particularly. One talking about the work ex, one more into the personal space about hobbies. So in case of ESCP, there were three essays. One was talking about the work ex. Second was more into your personal space, talking about the hobbies, general interests, and other activities. And third, which I think is very important for the interviews as well, is the international experience. So as I told you, ESCP is very international in both the students that it admits as well as the facilities that it provides. So they want to know what all international experience that you had previously. So if you have visited a country, if you have been on a exchange program, if you have worked for a company abroad, then you can write about that. For in my case, I did an internship with a US based company. So I wrote about that. I had before going to ESCP, I didn't I didn't go out of India. So for me, the international experience was only about working with an international team. So that I think is very important for ESCP, even in your SOP. So along with the essays, you have to submit a SOP as well. In your SOP, you have to, I would suggest someone to talk about the international experience and why uh, they think that it can help them in the future. Now coming to the interview, it's a very short interview compared to other business schools. It's only 30 to 40 minutes long. It's not a big interview. You will have, in my case, I had three people in the panel, a current student, a PhD student, and a professor. And they mostly focus on why you want to join the college. So they want to know what you have done and what exactly led you to applying for ESCP Business School. And secondly, as I said, they are very interested in your international work ex. So international experience, preferably a work ex, but if not, then other experiences can count as well. So in my case, they mostly asked about that. And if you have if you have done and something significant in the field of management, for example, if you had a startup, if you did an internship in management, if you have worked in marketing, if you have worked in finance, they'll ask you, they will grill you a bit about that. They asked me about some companies in Europe that I really like. What are the marketing tactics that are being followed in Europe? How's marketing different in Europe than in India? So be a bit prepared about your topic. And apart from that, just focus on the international experience, and I think it should be good.
All right, sounds great. I think that's a comprehensive way to put the entire application, starting from the GRE GMAT to the CV part, to the SOP, how you mention your story in a coherent format, and understanding what the school expects in terms of the specific work experience or the international experiences. It's very important to actually put it in a light which is authentic rather than just putting it in a more quantitative format, especially in the SOP part, because the essays are basically self-reflective questions where you need to talk about your story and there needs to be a human aspect to it. So I think that's beautifully put in. And finally, the interview, where you might have panel comprising of alumni, professors, students, the stakeholders in the community. Yeah, so I think any standard business school operates in this format, only that the cultural nuances and the on ground
Mhm.
experiences might be different depending on which campus you're applying to, what your long term and short term goals are. That's standard for any business school, and research obviously helps. So the more prepared you are, the better your chances of obviously getting in into the process. So finally, as we come to the end of this podcast, Vatsal, there is one component which I think is special to you, which I would like to ask, which is about your entrepreneurship experiences. Because I remember back in undergrad, you did a lot of freelancing work, and a lot of them had NDAs. So I'm not sure if you use them on the application, but then again, you want to start your own company later on. Marketing is giving you a great base as a interdisciplinary learning after engineering. So the analytical part and the marketing part. So how do you say the resources at ESCP has helped you in that direction, or what are your plans into the future? Because Paris itself has a lot of incubators, accelerators. Station F, for
Mhm.
example, is coming up. So I mean, a lot of resources on campus, outside campus. So how do you plan to get your startup up and running for all the entrepreneurial people out there? Like, is the experience helpful in getting to start a company, in short, if I am to summarize it? Yeah.
Sure. So I think for starting a company, first of all, school definitely helps, but there are components that school helps in. At the end, it's your endeavor. You have to take it forward. I think more than the school, you should focus on the country that you are in, because getting the visas done, getting the paperwork or the permits done, that is gonna be more of a headache for you than what you're getting from the school. So you should focus more on that. Now coming to school, yes, for example, in my case, I got a lot of help because I had a startup experience previously. So that helped me a lot. All the freelancing things that I did, it taught me more about how a startup is operated. During my I worked in small teams, although both of them were for big MNCs, but I worked in small teams that operated like startups. So again, that helped me a lot. But I think the more significant part is gonna be my next semester. For the next semester, I'm joining the entrepreneurship specialization in ESCP in Berlin. Why specifically Berlin? Because Berlin is the startup hub of Europe. Most of the tech startups that you see in Europe, they are based out of Berlin. ESCP itself has a incubator called Blue Factory in Berlin. So that is very important. You can register your startup with them while you are studying, and they'll help you through all the paperwork. The paperwork that I discussed previously, ESCP will help you through all that while you are incubated with them. So that's very helpful. And lastly, I think at the end, the network also counts. So if you are from a school like ESCP, so getting your first, getting your co-founder, getting the first few people, first few hires, getting the first investor, all of them will be much easier because you are from a reputed business school. So I think all in all, that's how a business school will help you through your entrepreneurial journey, and that's what I'm hoping to get out of ESCP post my MI.
Definitely. That's a beautiful take on the entrepreneurial part. It's more about your efforts at the end of the day. These are resources that are available on campus, off campus. And at the end of the day, there are different factors to consider. There are macroeconomic factors, where you want your business to be, all the standard steps and procedures of filing the incorporation documents. Because even as we run Envisio here in the UAE, there's a lot of legal compliances to be done and a lot of work which goes back and which people might not be so aware of. Like we look at the fancy part of scaling it to a unicorn, but as a founder who is just starting from scratch, I think those foundational blocks can be very, very important. So thank you, Vatsal, for sharing your experience today. As we close this podcast, could you give us three takeaways for anyone who is interested in applying to ESCP Europe, and just give us three takeaways, yeah?
Sure. So first of all, be very sure of the campuses that you want to go in, starting from the first one to down to your next three, or if you want to do two, be very sure of the campuses, research on that because each campus offer different things. Like I said, finance in London, marketing in Madrid, startup in Berlin. So be very sure of the campuses you want to go in. Secondly, use the opportunities. ESCP provides a lot of opportunities both in campus and out of campus in terms of your career, in terms of your student activities, in terms of extracurriculars, everything. Use those while you are in the college. And lastly, have fun. Have fun in ESCP. It's a great environment. It's a great place to be in. So don't forget, don't be too stressful. It's not that hectic academic wise. So you have a lot of time to just have fun. So don't forget that part.
I think this is a beautiful part which is common across all the podcasts I've been doing so far. Everyone mentions have fun on campus. Even at ESSEC here in Singapore, we have a tagline which is like ESSEC people, they work hard, they play hard. So there needs to be a
Exactly.
balance, definitely. I think I have mentioned this before as well. There's study trips which are facilitated by the campus, and then there's also a lot of excursions, outings which student communities, they themselves, we have something called a BDS system in Europe, so they also facilitate a lot of stuff which is for the overall development and the community part that we talk about in terms of attending this top B schools. So I get the part where it is not just about applications and it's a full package or mix. I think people who focus on one part which is just the academics or just the networking tend to miss out sometimes on the other
Exactly.
facets which is socializing. So definitely I think going into a B school is a big investment, not just in terms of the time and the monetary part, but also a commitment in the sense that you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. So Vatsal, thank you today for coming on the show and sharing your experiences, and I hope I can catch you up next time I'm in Europe.
Sure.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and all the best to all your applicants, and all the best to you for the whole helping of students and everything. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Vatsal. Appreciate it.